Keeping with the former president's influence on the party. New audio tapes we want to play you now. Another high-profile Republican in Congress speaking away from the public on January 6 about his own personal beliefs involving the former president and his behavior on that day, January 6. This time, Senator Lindsey Graham. Like similar tapes that we broadcast, they come from the reporting of two New York Times reporters and CNN political analysts Alex Burns and Jonathan Martin, and their new book, This Will Not Pass, Trump, Biden, and the Battle for America's Future. They join me now. So, Jonathan, you interviewed Senator Graham on January 6th after the Capitol had been attacked, and I want to just play some of the audio of that interview.
We'll actually come out of this thing stronger. Moments like this reset. It'll take a while. People will calm down. People who are, I don't want to be associated with that. This is a group within a group. And what this does, there'll be a rallying effect for a while where the country says we're better than this.
And Biden will help that, right?
Yeah, totally. He'll be maybe the best person to have, right? I mean, how bad can you get it with Joe Biden?
So if you compare January 6th Lindsey Graham to the Lindsey Graham of today, how stark are the differences? Because we should point out that Lindsey Graham publicly said that he had, he hated the way it ended with him and Trump, but he'd had enough.
Yeah, you can almost hear in his voice, Anderson, Senator Graham trying to sort of play out what the impact of this attack, which, as we talked, was still sort of ongoing as we spoke that afternoon on the 6th in a secure location after the Capitol was evacuated. The Capitol Police was still trying to clear the Capitol in those moments, but Graham's already thinking ahead. He's thinking about the political impact on his party and thinking about the impact on the country. And could this be a 9/11 style moment where the country rallies together? And who better to lead the country than a conciliatory figure like the new president, Graham's old friend, Joe Biden? And my goodness, those two assumptions in the days and weeks later, Anderson, would obviously prove to be errant. The country did not come together after January 6th. It, in fact, deepened the partisan divisions, and Joe Biden was not able to rally the country because he is sort of one more partisan actor on the political scene in this tribal moment that we're living through in this country.
Is it clear to you what made Graham flip back? Because, I mean, I can't remember if it was the next day he flew out in the airport and he was heckled by people at the airport, and he seemed upset by that. We should point out, we reached out to Senator Graham's office today to see if he believes the things he said. He says he stands by them, or if he stands by them. They responded in part saying, quote, Senator Graham has said that the Joe Biden we see as president is not the one we saw in the Senate. He's pursued a far-left agenda as president. He wouldn't say whether he stands by, the audio.
Yeah, so look, I think Senator Graham, like a lot of Republicans in the days and weeks after January 6th, as we capture in great detail in this book, they thought that maybe this was it, and maybe it was time to turn the page. And just maybe their voters were willing to turn the page from Donald Trump and kind of put the last 4 years behind them. And I think what happened, Anderson, is whether it was in the airports or via email or calls or old-fashioned letters, GOP lawmakers like Lindsey Graham found out their voters didn't want to move on, and they didn't feel particularly exercised about January 6th, and they weren't enamored at all with Joe Biden, and they wanted to keep the party's embrace of Donald Trump going. And I think once people like Graham and Kevin McCarthy figured that out, it was back to normal, and normal was sticking with Donald Trump.
Alex, Senator Graham said that people won't want to be associated with what happened January 6th. That clearly hasn't happened. I mean, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, who said the former president bared responsibility for the insurrection, is now calling the former president the Republican secret weapon, suggesting he could be president again. Does all of this come down to his influence at the ballot box?
Yeah, Anderson, I mean, even setting aside the irony of calling Donald Trump a secret anything, I do think it comes down to his influence in the ballot box. And it's what you and John were talking about at the top of the show. When you look at Trump's influence in intra-Republican Party politics, the voters are still clearly more with him than certainly against him, and more with him than they're with any other individual leader. And one of the big challenges that we outline in the book for Republicans who are uncomfortable with Trump or privately even sharply critical of him is how do you try to lead the party in a direction that is distinct from sort of Trump's day-to-day edicts, but that doesn't lead directly into conflict with him? I think what you heard in Lindsey Graham's voice on that tape, the kinds of things that we quote in the book, him saying on that day, there was this hope that it would just kind of happen organically, right? It's the same hope that Mitch McConnell expressed on the night of the January 6th attack. Trump has discredited himself, and the public can all see that now. It turns out that a whole lot of the public still doesn't see that today.
Alex, I want to play another clip of Senator Graham from that day.
He's misjudged passion. You know, he plays the TV game, and he went too far here. That rally didn't help. Talk about, you know, primarying us, and he created a sense of revenge.
Do you think that sense of revenge has abated at all?
No, it certainly has not. And when you look at how Trump has chosen to engage in the 2022 midterm election, so much of it is driven by personal retribution, taking vengeance on people like Liz Cheney, who broke with him over the 2020 election and the insurrection, taking vengeance even on someone like Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia. He's no moderate Republican, no critic of Donald Trump, but he wouldn't try to overturn the results of a free and fair election. And so politically, he is dead to Donald Trump. I think it's very, very important, Anderson, in that clip we just heard. You hear Lindsey Graham saying something that is very similar to what we report elsewhere in the book Kevin McCarthy said in the aftermath of January 6th, which is drawing a straight line between irresponsible rhetoric and actual acts of violence. And that is one of those dynamics that in those days Republican Party leaders were willing to acknowledge and really wrestle with and maybe even try to do something about. Today, they just simply won't even engage that dynamic as a question.
I want to play what the former president said on January 6th about Congresswoman Cheney that Senator Graham was actually referencing. Let's play that.
We got to get rid of the weak Congress people, the ones that aren't any good, the Liz Cheneys of the world. We got to get rid of them. We got to get rid.
So he talked about that created a sense of revenge.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Anderson, I think that's a crucial moment, not only in January 6th, not only in this book, but I think in recent American history, you know, singling out the daughter of the former vice president by name at a rally that would lead to the storming and attempted insurrection at the U.S. Capitol that day. Obviously, it has shaped Liz Cheney ever since then. And you heard Senator Graham on tape. He was not alone. A lot of lawmakers heard Trump mention Cheney by name and were appalled that he would do that before a crowd that turned out to be a mob. And I think it put people's lives in jeopardy. It certainly put Liz Cheney's life in jeopardy. She now has to have security service because of the threats against her, as we detail in the book. And so I think, you know, a lot of the sort of climate that the GOP has sort of fostered today, you can really trace back to that speech Trump gave the morning of January 6th. And I think what has happened is a lot of people in the party's old guard thought that that would be the trigger. That would be it. Finally, it would be okay to walk away from Trump. The party would have had enough. And it just turns out that those leaders were wrong. They didn't get their own voters. Their voters were not tired of Trump, and they are still happily in his embrace today.
And Anderson, it was just moments after that speech at the Capitol, just a short while after, that Liz Cheney, after evacuating from the House, turns to a colleague and says, "We need to impeach the son of a bitch." And I think that she was probably surprised not long after that to find how few other Republicans were willing to join her.